Hey everyone, this is my review of Antebellum. So right off the bat, I didn't think this was a very good movie, and normally I wouldn't review a movie that I don't like, and in fact I was like halfway through and I was already thinking, oh, this I'm not going to review this because I just wasn't getting into it. It felt off from the pretty much the very beginning. But once I finished it and was thinking about it, I just thought, well, maybe there is something instructive that we can learn from this movie, because I did think that this was a really good concept and there could have been a really good movie on this topic. The idea of connecting the horrors of slavery and the legacy of slavery into one movie where we're seeing the same characters in two different time periods, and how the horrors of slavery are still, just as prevalent today as they were back then, and as much as maybe we think things have improved, for Black Americans, the legacy of slavery is truly horrifying. And so the topic, the idea, you know, could have made for a really good movie. Unfortunately, this was not that movie, in my opinion. But I think that we can look at it and maybe take some things away from what mistakes they made and how the next time it could be better. Not that anyone's actually watching these or anyone from Hollywood is going to see this and be like, oh, he's right. But it's still, I just like to give the context to what was otherwise a pretty forgettable movie, how it could have been better. And then when we see movies that we do enjoy, we can think about like, oh, this didn't make the mistake that this other movie made. So I think just in terms of criticism, it's worth looking at the movies we don't like to see what those mistakes are. Anyway, let's just get right to it. From the very beginning, this movie felt off, and I have a feeling that I'm not the only one that felt that way. If you go up on Rotten Tomatoes, you see that it's only got like a 26 approval rating right now, which is really low, especially for a movie that was pretty highly anticipated, at least in certain like horror corners of film fandom. But once, just right away, it just felt off. There's no connection with the characters. It just didn't feel authentic. It didn't feel like these were real people. In fact, that they just felt like these characters are metaphors. They're meant to represent, the slave. They're meant to represent the Black American today. This is what a successful, Black woman looks like. And while I know this was meant to be a stylistic movie, it wasn't meant to be realistic. Still, it just, especially with horror, you need to feel connected. You need to feel like you could be in their shoes. But it never really felt real, and I mean, I guess it wasn't real once it turns out that it was all kind of manufactured. But you still have to feel connected to those characters, and I never did. But really, what compelled me to get on here and talk about this movie that I didn't really find very compelling is it made a mistake that it's kind of a famous mistake, what Alfred Hitchcock called icebox logic, and today, in more modern times, we call it fridge logic, where you have a moment in the movie that you doesn't feel off until the end, and you look back and it's like, wait, now that we know what we know, that doesn't make sense. And Hitchcock's point was that it doesn't matter, that when you're in the movie, it feels real, and you don't realize until afterwards, in which case the movie achieved what it was supposed to achieve. Well, what works for Hitchcock doesn't necessarily work for anyone else. And I really, even in Vertigo, where it most famously occurred, I didn't like it then, and I certainly don't like it now in modern movies. It's just like, it's not fair to the viewer. And so here's what I mean. There's the moment in about midway through, Janelle Monáe's character is at the hotel and she's getting on the elevator, and there's that creepy child who we may or may not have seen in the slavery scenes earlier. But we know that this child is supposed to be from the 1800s, and she's saying, "Shh, don't talk, or they'll get you." And it's really creepy. And at this point in the movie, we don't know how those two parts are connected. Is it some kind? Because she woke up from a dream, and it was like, oh, I had another nightmare. And so we're meant, it's implied that these slavery scenes are part of her nightmare, and it's kind of meant to be a metaphor for the black experience in America today. We're still living, I don't mean to say we, who are still living with the legacy of slavery, and how it's still horrific and still a nightmare, and we haven't gotten past it. All worthy things to be the subject of a movie. But but we don't know how it all fits together. Is there a supernatural element? Is some kind of science fiction element? We really don't know, and we're not meant to know. And we're seeing all these clues of what may be happening. And so when that girl shows up, it's reinforcing the idea that, oh, something supernatural, and the nightmare of the past is becoming alive in the present. Again, metaphor alert. And so as a viewer, we're still unsure of which way it's going to go. Except when we get to the end, we find out, oh, it was all realistic. This is modern day, and all of the scenes, all of the slavery scenes are part of modern day. They've converted part of this, Antebellum, Civil War reenactment theme park into an actual working slave plantation, and they're kidnapping, prominent, successful Black Americans and turning them into slaves so that they can live out their, white master fantasies. Again, a worthy topic of a movie, except we have created the impression, not just the impression, we have, pretty much said that it must be supernatural because this girl doesn't fit any other way. And once you get to the end of the movie and you look back, you're like, wait, why was that girl there? Like, it wasn't a ghost, and it wasn't a figment of her imagination. It was, she must have really been there. But why would, if you're making this plot to kidnap these people and turn them, why are you, giving them warning and maybe scaring them? And maybe she would just be like, ah, I'm getting out of here. This is creepy. It doesn't make any sense. There's no way that you can convince me that there's any logical explanation for it. Maybe that's part of her imagination, whereas the other things end up being, doesn't add up. Big fail. And so my point is, by Hitchcock rules, that's okay, because at that moment in the film, we don't know which it is, and so we can still be immersed. It's only when we reach the end that we realize that it couldn't have worked out that way. But knowing what we know now, it ruins everything. And so that's why I hate this kind of plot contrivance. It just ruins the internal consistency of the movie. It's no longer logical. It no longer fits together. And the only way it works is if you have a situation where it could, every step of the way, that thing could be supernatural or it could be a part of a realistic explanation, and it's 50-50 all the way through. But when you go one way and then it's a fake and it's really the other way, it no longer works. And so basically, I just wanted to get on here and gripe about how I don't like that kind of plot contrivance, and hopefully we won't see any more of those, especially in movies that could otherwise have been good. And this wasn't actually the only problem with the movie. I talked about some of the other things I didn't like, but that really stood out to me, and I wanted to kind of address that. So anyway, quite a bummer. I was looking forward to this movie and am sad that it didn't turn out to be any good. And that especially because Janelle Monáe really gave an excellent performance, and I'm hoping to see more movies from her. And the filmmakers, I'm also looking forward to more movies from them, because I think they're obviously very talented, and the production value is quite high, and it was just the tone and the choices that the plot made didn't work for me, and it looks like it didn't work for a lot of people. But I'm definitely willing to give these filmmakers another try, and maybe this is just my opinion. Other people, I would love, especially if you like the movie and you want to defend the movie, I would love to hear from you, because I do want to know like what resonated with you, why did you like it, what am I missing? So I'd love to have that conversation. So hit me up in the comments. And if you like the review, please like or subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. And I will hopefully see you again next time.